So welcome again to our another video. The objective of this video, we're just mostly focusing on piston, cylinder, piston rings and etc. We have already used the bore gauge, which is this instrument right here, to evaluate the taper of the cylinder and the outer round of the cylinder. So we already used this instrument in my previous video. You can check it out. Okay, pertaining to the cylinder now, even before you remove the piston, you have to check the piston if there's any ridge right here. If there's a ridge, this instrument right here, we should call a ridge reamer, it will go down in the cylinder, and what you actually do, you actually turn this ridge reamer to cut, adjust, using the adjuster to adjust it, and you force it down, and you actually turn it to actually, like this, you actually turn the reamer to actually cut any ridge that is in the cylinder. Okay, so this is our ridge reamer to remove any ridge. Pertaining to the cylinder integrity, you're going to inspect inside the cylinder. You're going to inspect inside the cylinder, and when you're inspecting inside the cylinder, you have to ensure that the cylinder is clean and nice. Even when the cylinder is clean and nice, if you're using other rings, if you're going to use brand new rings, you have to use some tools that we call honing tool. This tool is what we call a honing tool. What this tool does, it performs a deglazing action. What's a deglazing action? When this tool is fit inside the cylinder and the cylinder have the correct size, it will deglaze the cylinder, mean moving away any ring wear pattern. But since this honing tool is only specific for a cylinder with certain size, we normally use this. This is also a honing tool, this one right here. So this honing tool will be used inside the cylinder, and when you're using the honing tool inside the cylinder oil, we need to ensure that we lubricate our cylinder with our engine oil. And when we lubricate the cylinder and tool, then we use our drill. And we'll turn this honing tool and move it up and down while the drill is turning it. And what it will do, it will remove all the old piston rings wear pattern, because the old rings that was in this cylinder, it carry a wear pattern. So we call it a deglazing process. If you're re-sleeving the engine, you don't need to do that because a brand new sleeve. So honing tool, okay. So that is the cylinder. All right, now let us look now on our piston. Here we have the piston. When the piston is being installed, we need that to ensure that the piston enter the cylinder in the right direction, because you see these cut in the groove, these in the crown, this cut in the crown, these cut is to ensure that when the valve is open, the valves don't touch the piston head. So if you should put this piston wrong in the cylinder, the chance of the valves touching the piston crown, piston head is the same thing. The two words are interchangeable, same thing. So if the valve should touch the piston crown / the piston head, you will have interference and the engine can seize. So very key thing you need to pay attention to, how the pistons are installed in the cylinder. So my advice to you, mark them, make note. Now we have phone, we can just take picture. As we pull up, we take picture, so when we are reassemble, we put back the things in the right order. Alright, so this piston right here now, this instrument is what we call a micro vernier caliper or a vernier micrometer. The advantage of this instrument, that the accuracy of this instrument can go up to 10,000 of an inch accurate. Normally the micrometer can go up to 1,000 of an inch accurate. And if you should check some manual, this is the accuracy level that they are talking about. So this micro vernier caliper now, we use it to measure the crown of the piston, the diameter of the crown. And of course, would have to get the manual and this engine. What is the number written on this engine block? 1NZ? Yes, a 1NZ. So of course you'd have to search for the manual or search for the information online, and you will measure the crown and compare it with the information or the dimension it need to be. When measure the crown, and if it is correct, you need to also measure the skirt of the piston. People, pay attention. You need to measure the skirt. The skirt on the crown is not the same dimension. The skirt dimension is different from the crown dimension. So, the crown right here, you notice I have to adjust the micrometer to measure the crown. The skirt is actually bigger. So don't be confused and measure the wrong thing. So you have to measure the skirt, which is on the piston and the crown. Skirt, which is right here, the skirt and the crown. Two different dimensions. Then now, when we're talking about rings now, rings, we normally use an instrument that we call a piston rings plier or a piston rings remover. But on these light vehicle, I can use just a simple flathead pliers if you have the basic skill and knowledge, and remove these rings. Alright, screwdriver. So these rings now, there are key things you have to ensure when you're inspecting the piston. You have to ensure that the carbon deposit is removed from the rings. Okay? The next thing you need to measure the rings side clearance, and this is how you measure the ring side clearance. Check the manual for the correct dimension. My assumption this might be, I just need a thin blade because this is a demonstration purpose. Alright, check the manual for the side clearance. Install, after you clean up the piston, install the ring, sit the ring back like this, and then you check the gap, and the gap must be within specification. Once the gap is not correct, the vehicle will lose compression, because remember, is the compression go behind the gap and force the piston rings against the cylinder wall. So rings clearance is very important, and this is a procedure of checking piston rings clearance. Check the manual. That's why you need to check the manual for the correct clearance. Alright, so we finished with ring clearance now. The other thing that you need to check now is the piston ring and gap. You're going to install the rings within the cylinder like this. Then you're going to take the piston head, and then you're going to force down the rings. And then now we shall check our manual for the correct ring and gap, and then we'll check the ring and gap like this. Ensure you're catching this on the video. You check come get some light. Can I get some light so you can see? You check the ring and gap like this. Here it is. Thank you. Alright. And once the ring and gap is okay, that means you're good. But remember something. You remember when we use this bore gauge here and check for taper, if the cylinder taper, you know, you're going to get a bad ring and gap. And assume that you get the correct ring and gap and you have a badly tapered cylinder. When the same piston rings go down the cylinder, the piston ring is going to break up because there will not be enough distance for the rings to close. So that's why the cylinder have to be evaluated with the bore gauge and with an internal micrometer first before we do these activities. So these activities after we use our internal micrometer to measure the diameter of the cylinder to ensure that it is not wear. We use our bore gauge to measure the taper on the outer round. When we finish do that, we do deglazing to ensure that the new rings will be able to facilitate their own wear pattern, and then we use the piston rings and measure the ring and gap. And also we use the rings to measure the side clearance. Alright, so we finish with that, so I can install my ring right here. The next thing now, whenever we are installing rings to prevent blow-by, remember blow-by is the compression passing the piston rings going down in the crankcase. So to minimize, all engines have certain level of blow-by, to tell you the truth. That's why we have a positive crankcase ventilation valves that can find in the valves cover or the topic cover.
You have to show it at some point.
Any valve cover I have around me now, I can show you. Any valve cover, find a valve cover and I can show you. Alright? So, now, when we are installing the rings now, we have to do something that we call stagger the rings. So what we are doing is basically allowing the ring end gap to oppose each other. So here we have one gap and here we have another gap. So I can allow these gaps to oppose each other. Alright, so let me just install the rings. And remember, because this is a light vehicle light application, I can always use my hand. But if it was more like a heavy duty application, so here I stagger the ring. So here I have one ring end gap right here and the other gap to the opposite direction. Some people say they can divide 360 by 3. How much that work out to be? 120 degrees. So you don't have the compression rings, the other compression rings and the oil ring, but I normally just oppose to each other because the oil ring is not significant when it comes down to compression, right? Yes. All right, good. So I stagger the rings. All right, now, what I don't remember, which direction them piston here come out? Front or back? Anybody remember? All right, where's the cylinder head? Where's the intake valves? Because the intake valves will normally open deeper. Oh, we don't have the cylinder head for this. All right, demonstration purpose. All right, so let us assume that this is the correct direction of the piston installment. First, we'd have to lubricate the piston. Lubricate the piston, oil it up, make sure I said oil up and lubricate up. And we'll also have to lubricate the thank you. We'll also have to lubricate the cylinder, so we make sure the cylinder is oil up. Alright. Then now, when we finish our lubrication, we're going to use a tool. This is our ring squeezer. And we'll make the necessary adjustment. And we'll put our piston in our ring squeezer. People pay attention. Ring squeezer. Put it right here. Then we have an Allen key or an Allen key. And then we will pull right here. Have some of the oil. We'll pull right here and we're going to tighten it. So all those people don't like when it is tightened, I'm sorry for you, we're going to tighten it. So we're going to tighten the ring squeezer using the Allen key. Alright, see now, good. Alright, so it is tightened. Then remember the direction of installation, and we can normally have some cover that we put underneath the stud, but there's no stud underneath this, so we can ignore that for now. Ensure that the crankshaft is tightened. And can I get the armor please? At this point we are just barely tapping it. Just tapping, no every knocking, just tapping. Barely tapping it. Alright, ensure that it is square up. Tapping it. And then we just take our hammer. Alright, let us knock down this some more. Good. We want the skirt to first enter the cylinder. The skirt in the ring squeezer to first enter. So our skirt will be installed. Good. The skirt will be installed. We tap it to ensure it's seated proper. Just barely tap in. And then we set the piston as much as possible. Then we just barely pat it. Just barely pat it. Because remember, it is already lubricated. Just barely pat it. See it? There it is. Piston installed. Wow. And then now we can actually turn it over, turn the block sideways to ensure that the conrod and the crankshaft pin or the crank pin journal is connected, and we have to set the bearing cap properly to ensure the piston is installed. But the hardest part is this, and there it is. Okay, so in summary, alright, PCV valves. Here we have a valves cover for 1NZ. Here is the PCV valve, positive crankcase ventilation valve. Here it is. And this is a one-way valve. So if you should start the engine, and you notice there's a lot of fumes or oil coming out of this valve right here, you know that there's a high possibility that this valve is stuck with sludge built up. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Sludge built up. Alright, so that's it. So in summary, using our bore gauge, we should check for taper and out of round. We also use an internal micrometer, we should check the cylinder for wear. Then we use our honing tool, or a matter of fact, we use our ridge reamer to check if there's any ridge. If there's a ridge, we remove it with our ridge reamer. Then we use our deglazing tool to actually hone the cylinder. This is it. Two of them have this one, which is better than this one. So when we finish with the evaluation and the preparing of our cylinder, then we do a ring end gap, we do a side clearance, then we install our piston using our ring squeezer, and of course we have done some measurement with our micrometer. So that is how we evaluate the cylinder and check ring end gaps and install the piston in the correct order. That's it.